So, hope everyone had an enjoyable, wonderful Labor Day weekend. This is the executive meeting of Community Board 5. The executive committee meets once a month for the purpose of being apprised by each committee chair of actions and/or discussions that have been taking place at the committee level, which leads us to our main purpose, which is to form and finalize the agenda for the full board meeting. The executive committee seldom takes action. However, on rare occasions and in emergency situations will do so. This evening, we have no such actions. Members of the public are provided the opportunity to attend the meeting in person or, in the case of the pandemic, to attend during a virtual meeting. So anyone who is attending the meeting as a non-member may sign in as an attendee. See, we have 3. There will be a public session at the beginning of the meeting where anyone who is interested in speaking will have 2 minutes. Please use the raised hand feature to be called on. We will start the meeting with a public session followed by the committee moving into the business session, where only members of the committee will be recognized during discussion. Please keep in mind that this group will not be deliberating or voting on any issues this evening. Again, the main purpose of the executive committee meeting is to form and finalize the agenda for Thursday night's full board meeting. However, all members of the public are encouraged to sign up for and participate in the public session of the full board meeting on Thursday if they wish to speak to issues that are before the board for action and any other matters that may be of common interest to the board. Something out of the ordinary this evening, just to let everyone know that at the end of our business session, the committee will be moving into an executive session, which means that there will be an opportunity to deal with one of 8 subject area exemptions to the open meetings law. Only members of the committee will be in attendance and anyone else will be unable to observe the meeting. At the end of the executive session, the committee will adjourn that meeting, return to the business session of the committee, and immediately adjourn the business session of this evening's meeting. It's a little cumbersome, but that is the procedure as per the Committee on Open Meetings. So without further ado, I will now open the public session. I'll see if anyone is interested in. I don't see anyone with a raised hand, and we have 4 people.
So this is, the public session. If anybody would like to speak at this meeting, now's the time. Feel free to raise your hand and you will be allowed to speak for 2 minutes.
Okay, I see none. We have 4 attendees, so we will move into our business session. Let us start with our committee reports, starting with land use, housing, and zoning. Layla.
All right, good evening, good afternoon. Hope everyone had a good weekend. We had 2 items during our land use, housing, and committee meeting, but only 1 action item. So I'm going to go through this one first. This is an application by the IBM building. They are proposing to legalize tables and chairs that are adjacent to a kiosk inside a privately owned public space that is unclosed. It is one of the most successful POPs in the city, and this POPs is actually quite interesting because not areas of this POPs that are all public and open to the public, not all of those areas were actually generating a bonus. And the area in question where the tables and chairs are being proposed is actually in the non-bonus section of the POPs. As such, the committee felt that adding chairs and tables for the sole purpose of serving the patrons of the kiosk was appropriate. Initially, when the space was constructed, it was actually planned for private use, and use that were contemplated were a newsstand or a flower booth. So the committee felt that a private use, such as a service area, was in keeping with the initial provisions. The applicant is proposing to install plexiglass partitions to delineate the area, and we felt that it was tasteful and that it was appropriate. And the committee voted unanimously to approve the request.
Okay. Anybody have any questions about this? Or any comments? Okay, Leila, you are on for landmarks.
Okay, so for landmarks, let me actually pull my sheet, sorry. So we had 3 applications. Oh no, I'm sorry. I actually want to stay on land use very briefly to mention that the Court Theater appeared in front of the committee. It was for information purposes. They are proposing, they have a land use action that is pending. They will be certified very soon, and they will return to the committee next month because by then they will have been certified. It is a transfer of air rights that they're seeking approval of. It is a ULURP action, and they came to give us a presentation. It is a really very technical application, but I'm sure that next month we'll be able to parse through all the various pieces. But it was very helpful that the applicant was able to brief the committee ahead of the actual action when they come next month. So it's no action, but I wanted to make sure that the exec committee is aware that the Court Theater appeared at our land use meeting.
Is there a definite timeline on that, or do they have to come next month?
Yes, they do.
They do.
And we were not able to vote or take any action at this past meeting because they had not yet been certified. So the clock will start ticking when they are certified, which I believe is going to be next week.
Okay.
So they will return for our October cycle.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on to landmarks. We had 3 applications. The first one is 130 West 42nd Street. This is the Bush Tower. This was actually the very first skyscraper built in New York City. The application is for a roof replacement. So it was interesting because they're really proposing something that is pretty extensive. The existing roof, which is the historic roof, is copper. It has deteriorated beyond repair. It's actually been patched and repaired many, many times. It is currently covered with a sort of mastic type of coating. So the copper itself is actually non-visible currently. And the applicant is proposing to use a resin that is going to have the color of copper, but that is much easier to install and has better wind resistance. This is a fairly exposed roof that has actually suffered from wind damage. So although they're not proposing to use the original material, the committee felt that the proposed replacement was adequate, mostly because the roof is non-visible except for very, very minor visibility from far, far, far away, and that the proposed roof treatment did not detract from the quality of the building. And we voted to approve the application unanimously.
Okay, that's great. Any questions or any comments from anyone on the committee? Okay, the next one, Leila.
Next one is 201 Park Avenue South, which is also 51 East 17th Street. This is the currently the W Hotel, which used to be the Guardian Life Insurance building at the corner of Park Avenue South and 17. A very fine and well-known building, very well recognizable for its very, very large neon sign on the roof and its 4-story mansard roof. The applicant is proposing to do a rooftop addition, which initially when we read the description got us a little nervous. What they're proposing actually is to relocate all the mechanical equipment, some of which is currently visible, and to push it in areas that is non-visible, and to build a 1-story addition that will serve as a lounge and bar area for patrons of the hotel. All of it will be non-visible with the exception of a tiny minuscule sliver that will actually blend with the background. The primary facades are in no way impacted by this addition. The proposed structure is tasteful and very elegant. The committee felt that it was actually an improvement because they're relocating some mechanical equipment that is currently visible to areas that will be non-visible. And we're actually quite excited, and we voted to approve this proposal, unanimous approval.
I like those unanimous approvals.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions? Any comments? Okay, next one, Leila.
And the final one is 130 Fifth Avenue. This is an application for the replacement of storefronts on West 18th Street and Fifth Avenue. Currently, it is occupied by Express, the clothing brand, and the applicant is CVS. They are proposing to do some storefront reconfiguration. The main one that was the point of most of our discussion is that they're proposing to turn a window into a door, and they want to make this door a automatic door. We had grave issues with the opening mechanism. Opening automatic doors in historic districts, especially in the Ladies Mile, are really non-contextual. The committee felt that this proposal was not appropriate, and we voted to deny. We also had concerns about the amount of lighting. Although the lighting that concerns us is interior, it will bleed into the street, as CVS, for their branding, has a pretty strong lighting, and we felt that this was also problematic. So, which was a denial, and once again, unanimous votes.
Yay. Okay. Okay, so that was a deny unanimously. Okay. Anybody have any questions on that one? Or any comments? All right, seeing none, we're going to move to X. Renee.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Vicki. Hi, everybody. We had 2 meetings since the last full board. The first was on August 4th and the second was on August 25th. And from that, we had 6 issues, but only 2 resolutions. The first was the committee's consideration of the NYPD budget and the role of the NYPD. And the second was the support of the small business tax credit against the commercial rent tax. The first reso took us 2 meetings to put together because we had a very robust conversation. Lots of people joined in about the NYPD budget and the role of the NYPD. What we ultimately did was we used the template that the Transportation Committee had developed as a way of organizing the conversation into the facts and core principles and then recommendations. Our second resolution is similar to one we had previously supported regarding the commercial rent tax. I'll talk about that one first. Businesses below 96th Street are subject to a commercial rent tax, which is 3.9%. It's a levy on annual rent applied to businesses who pay more than $500,000 in annual rent and more than $5 million in annual revenue. So in 2017, you may remember our council member Grodnick lessened that. He raised a $250,000 rent threshold to $500,000 for those businesses earning $5 million in revenue or less, and that was to protect small businesses. And there was a sliding scale that also followed that. That bill was supported by CB5, and then it was implemented in June 2018. Councilmember Powers has introduced a bill, Intro to 2007 to 2020, which would suspend the commercial rent tax during COVID for all businesses paying less than $1 million in rent, regardless of business income. So our committee had a really good discussion. We were really concerned about how many businesses fell into the suspension that were chain stores or entities that really didn't need the relief. We looked at 2019 data, and it seemed that this bill was going to cost the city about $21 million in tax revenue. So there was a real tension between alleviating the burden for small businesses and those that needed relief, and keeping it for those that could still pay it. We ultimately had a unanimous vote in favor of the bill, with the recommendation that the council consider exempting those that are not in need. We left it to the council to figure out how to do that, but there was unanimous approval of the proposed bill.
So you have one reso?
No, we have two.
The other one is a resolution also. Okay. All right. Does anyone have any questions on this one? Or any comments? Okay, we will go to the second one.
Okay, our second resolution is very long, and it was our response to the fiscal year 2021 executive budget. You remember that came out at end of June, beginning of July 1st, which was the distribution of cuts among the agencies. And so it's, there was we had a lot of concern about people who were impacted by COVID and the New York City Police Department. And we wanted a statement of principles to be incorporated into our board's fiscal 2022 budget request. It was sort of following the transportation committee template. So you have to remember, we're going back 2 months, but at the time of our discussion, there was at least a $9 billion hole in tax revenue to the city that was being lost for fiscal year 2021. And the preliminary executive budget was making up a lot of that loss through cuts to social services, housing, education, infrastructure. You may remember the youth education program, and it was impacting seniors, kids, communities of color, and it was leaving the NYPD pretty much unscathed. There were a lot of people calling for $1 billion to be removed from NYPD funding in that 21 budget. And what actually passed was that the NYPD was allocated $5.22 billion, which ended up being a $414 million reduction. And they saved it by cutting only $55 million, by cutting one of the annual classes of new recruits, by putting a hiring freeze on non-safety positions, filling fewer TEA vacancies, canceling one cadet class, and reducing some of their outside contracts. They also shifted some of the homeless outreach services to DHS. The problem that we saw in this was that the NYPD had been exceeding its overtime budget by $398 million and $407 million in 2019 and 2020. And this budget reduced overtime spending by 60%, but there was no real, that was in 21. But after fiscal year 21, there was no reference to reducing overtime. Another issue that we saw was that the budget counted on partial hiring freezes at most agencies, and with agreements with the city's municipal labor for about $1 billion in labor savings, and potentially layups, as you know, for up to 22,000 workers. But all but 62 million of the reduction of the NYPD budget reduction comprised either fringe benefits, unenforceable overtime, and future commitments that weren't really included in the signed budget itself. It also included a future commitment that school safety agents and a shift of the school crossing guards to DOE. So it just shifted from the NYPD, the safety agents, and the school crossing guards to NYPD. And the New York City's Independent Budget Office said that this really meant that the DOE was going to operate a program that had already been underwritten because they had already been sending $307 million to the NYPD for the school safety program anyway. We also found it hard to see the units of appropriation in the NYPD budget. They're really broad, really hard to parse. We had a lot of people in to try and explain it to us, but it was very difficult for us, and we believe for the public and elected officials to really provide any clear oversight on NYPD's spending. So we talked about all of this. There were a lot of people involved, and as part of our advisory process for budget recommendations, and in association with our record of supporting schools and children and communities of color and frontline service workers, and our conversations about how resources for public safety should be allocated, we created a set of core principles that would guide us when making our budget recommendations. They are in the resolution that you see, but it's that the budget is really a statement of values, so that municipal budgets are a reflection of the city's values. And we want them to be diverse, provide economic opportunity and inclusion. And we think our budget decisions should be made in alignment with those values. We think there should be an efficient use of funds. There should be equal opportunity. That budget decisions must be made in alignment with the self-described mission of the given agency. So in the case of NYPD, very specifically, it's to enhance the quality of life in New York City by working in partnership with the community. We think that the purpose and mission needs to be front and center, that city agencies should reflect the diversity of New York City, that there should be transparency and accountability, there should be ethical and legal behavior, and trust and respect. So we came to the conclusion that there was a failure in prioritizing frontline services during the pandemic, and that budget cuts should be fairly distributed across agencies, including the NYPD. What we asked for in our resolutions is for clear and honest communication from elected officials about the budget decisions, a formal plan to achieve targeted reduction in NYPD overtime spending, a full report on the shift of some of the homeless outreach services from the NYPD to the DHS and from NYPD to the DOE. We asked that the Office of Management and Budget work with NYPD to develop fiscal 2022 budget appropriations that are organized so you can compare year to year and that you can really understand what you're talking about, so you're not talking about apples and oranges. And also to standardize the formatting of the past spending so that we could compare budget line to budget line. We also asked in our resolution that the NYPD release detailed information on an annual basis about its spending on the acquisition and maintenance of military grade equipment and their specific projected uses. And then we also asked for a formal plan to enable and require NYPD to dismiss rather than keep on modified duty those who've committed illegal or unethical behavior. And we want and would like the city to reconsider the role that police officers should play in the city, and to think about alternative agencies and initiatives that might better accomplish aspects of the NYPD's mission. I know that was a lot. So that was our resolution, and it was unanimously approved.
Incredible resolution. I mean, I don't know
Wow.
how to put it together, but it was really, really unbelievable. What month did we pass the first resolution on lightly touching on this? Was it?
So the August 4th meeting was when we had a lot of people attending that meeting. I think it was very topical at the time. So we had a lot of people, and the meeting went on for a long period of time. We took all the notes on August 4th, did not take a resolution. We said that we would come back on August 25th, which we did, and put it into a resolution format, which we did. And then we had friendly modifications to that on the 25th, which resulted in this resolution.
But didn't we also touch upon that in a resolution right after the protests started and everything? That's what I was referring to.
Yes,
Yeah.
very, very briefly,
Right.
but we
One
didn't.
little section.
Yes, yes. I mean, we refer to this, that our support for, fair funding across, when we say that CB5 has supported fair funding across all agencies, that was a brief resolution we had just before the budget came out. Yes, I believe that was our June resolution.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay.
But we were waiting because we couldn't really, it didn't make sense in terms of the numbers until we knew the numbers, right? So we wanted to wait for the budget to be issued. So that's sort of how this all played out, just in terms of a timeline.
Incredible. Does anyone have any questions or comments on this?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Renee, are there any other areas of the budget that we are sort of mandated to respond to? Can you just refresh our memory on the process for commenting on the executive budget?
Sure. So Leila, we had already, we're not required for the executive for this portion of the budget. We just felt compelled to weigh in at this point, given what was happening and how people felt and the comments we were having for the community. So when the budget comes out, our next piece of this, it's a circular piece, we will be making recommendations for requests. Our capital and executive requests will come about in October, and then that won't be digested and brought to the fore until next year. And then once that preliminary budget comes out, then we would be asked to comment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? I'm going to say this out loud because I said it to Renee. I cannot thank her enough for the direction she has really, I mean it, Renee, it's really true. With the help of Julie, who's been in there right behind you and with you, all of those of us who have been on the board before you took over Bex, I think they would agree with me that this has become such an important committee on Community Board 5, and the work that you and Julie and all your members have been doing. And I said this to Renee earlier, but I want to say it again, and that is, I don't know how we would have handled the whole COVID issue without Bex being led by these two people. So I just want to say a big fat thank you.
Thank you so much. But I have to say, it's mostly the committee. It really is. This is hard stuff, and
Yeah, you've got really great people.
Fabulous people. Absolutely fabulous.
Clayton? Clayton?
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. For some reason, I don't have a raise hand feature anymore. I don't know what happened to it. But I also just wanted to add that there were a number of people, members of the public and others, who spoke at our June cycle and weighed in about this issue, who I'm sure would be very interested, who might not normally attend our meetings. And so I'm wondering if we might want to look at that sign-in sheet from June's full board meeting in order to identify who those people were, if possible, just to make sure that, I mean, obviously there might be on our email list, but to make sure they know that this is on the agenda, because, you know, we want to make sure there's people know there's follow-up on this.
That's a good point. Okay. Anything else?
I do. If I could mention that we have a cleanup day. I don't know if is this the appropriate time to mention cleanup day?
Sure.
Great. We are partnering with Speaker Johnson's office and FIT to clean up the block between 26th Street, between 7th and 8th Avenue this Saturday at 10 o'clock. You guys can all sign up. It's on our website. The flyer is going to be circulated, and the Department of Sanitation is going to provide all the shovels and the bags and everything we need to pick up the trash on the block. If you guys, there's $106 million cut from the sanitation budget, and so things are tight, and collections have not been what they once were. So every little bit helps.
What was the block?
26th Street, between 7th and 8th. We're meeting on the east side of 26th Street. The southeast side, I should say.
And the date?
This Saturday, it is I want to say the 12th, right? Yeah, the 12th, 10 o'clock, 10 a.m.
12 at 10 a.m. Okay.
I just want to say also, for information purposes, we had a presentation from NYU, who will be taking over the W Hotel in Union Square. Their students are going to be housed there. They've provided a telephone number to us should we encounter any clustering problems. They're trying not to do that. There's one student per room. I'll just let you know that the restaurant there is not being run by NYU. That's something separate. But if you have clustering problems or have a problem, we can share that number with you.
Okay. Going back to the cleanup, is that on our website? I think I saw it.
I had asked, I don't know if Luke's there. I had sent it to him to ask that it be put up. I didn't check.
Yeah, so I can definitely put it up. I didn't know if there was a final approval here, but yeah, that is something definitely that we'll put up on the website.
Okay, good. Okay, Renee, thank you again. Anything else that anyone has any questions or issues?
Can I give a brief report from PSQL?
Sure.
PSQL doesn't have any resolutions for us tonight, this cycle, but I did want to let everyone know that we are following Open Street Dining, and our district has encountered very, very few complaints. The number of complaints we received, I mean, maybe 3, and I think only 1 of those was legitimate. So CB5 is doing very, very well as far as Open Street Dining. We're going to continue to monitor it. We have been seeing anecdotally what's been going on in other districts, and we're confident that the SLA is doing the enforcement that they need to. So if we ever do have problems, we feel confident that there are methods in place to address them.
You know, I think I saw the figures on how many are in CB5. Do you know offhand, or did you see them? I think we have a huge, huge number, don't we?
I heard that as well. It's a very large number, and surprisingly few complaints because of it.
Yeah, that's great. Everybody is adhering to what they're supposed to be adhering to, obviously. Okay.
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that, but we aren't getting complaints.
Okay.
And I'm sure if there were people were violating what they were supposed to do, and we'd be hearing about it.
Sure. Okay. Anything else? At this point, I think we should, I want to make sure that the order is okay.
Actually, Vicki, I'd love to just give a update about the non-agenda item for parks.
Sure.
So we had 2 non-action items at committee this month, but one of them was super exciting, and I just wanted to alert you guys to it. You might have already seen the press release from Municipal Art Society in collaboration with New Yorkers for Parks. They have released a policy report and recommendation advocating for the creation of a position in city government titled Director of the Public Realm. And it is the type of creative, top-level, big idea thinking that we rarely see, and that is very refreshing and exciting. And the committee was thrilled to hear this excellent presentation. We did not take a vote on this because it's an extremely early stage proposal, and it's not quite appropriate since there's so many questions yet to be fleshed out. But our input and concerns and questions and feedback was quite appreciated by them as they continued to develop this idea. And we did agree to send a letter of support to whomever in the administration or city council it would be useful to do. They're recommending that this position be created as a mayoral office position. So it would not be a city agency, which would, because creating a new city agency is basically a non-starter for a zillion reasons. So a person in that position at that level would, in theory, have the authority to coordinate and communicate between all the very many city agencies that govern all the very many different types of public spaces. So we're talking about POPs as well, private entities, I mean, that are publicly owned private spaces, privately owned public spaces, sorry, the pedestrian plazas, our parks, of course, sidewalks. There's still some uncertainty about street bed and street fairs and how streets would play into it, but all these questions are things that we're going to be continuing to look forward to how they roll out. And when it comes to land use and BECS in particular, I look forward to having a conversation either at exec or with the committee chairs about how we might all want to weigh in on this, because there's obvious land use ramifications, but also they really are asking for our help to weigh in on this idea when it comes to our request for the budget as well. So there's a lot of interesting questions before us, and I look forward to working on you all with that.
This is super exciting. So great.
I think we're all excited about it. Everyone on the committee was, right? Yeah. Okay, that's great. And was there another thing, or was that the only one, Clayton?
We did also hear an update about the very good news of the administration's change of tune to issue sports fields permits.
Oh, right. Oh, that's
Certain
important.
groups.
Yeah.
Very important, and we're not done with that, but it was a good news night.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they've said yes. It's just a question of ironing it out now, I think.
Well, yes, and also, and adults are the next
Yeah,
thing to tackle.
yeah. Okay, wonderful. Anything else? Is the order okay? Land use first, landmarks, and then budget? And should we have some reports to the full board? I think we should. I think, actually, I think there should be a report from PS2L, Nick, even though it's short, I think it's important. And parks,
Sure.
Clayton?
Yeah.
Maybe then we want to intersperse one of those reports between landmarks and land use so that I can catch my breath.
Sure. Why don't we put you want to put the two reports in there together?
Sure, yeah.
We'll put the two in between land use and landmarks, and then, now, is there anything from T&E, EJ, that we need to know in the form of a report? I know you didn't have any
I
action.
don't think so. We received a number of interim reports from interim updates from DOT. Two reports on the 14th updates on the data from the 14th Street busway and current status of open streets that were very, interim brief updates, and then a larger walkthrough of the current status of the Fifth Avenue Complete Street proposal, but not the final version of the Fifth Avenue Complete Street proposal. So there was a very full walkthrough of the current status of the proposal and a lot of discussion and questions, but I don't know that it merits a report during a full board meeting because we fully expect them to come back to us again next month with a final version of that Complete Street proposal. And so anything that we would report out now would be incomplete, particularly in terms of the configuration of Fifth Avenue and the final rules of the final busway rules and whether or not they'll be the same type of rules we see on 14th Street, which will really determine things like access of private vehicles, access for residents through traffic. We can't answer any of those questions yet. So we fully expect them to come back to us next month.
Have you heard anything since your meeting from the bids and from the stakeholders that expressed their concerns?
I think we heard a lot during the meeting
Yeah.
about their concerns, and I believe we're still waiting to hear on the final community advisory board meeting that is supposed to be taking place.
Oh, that's right. In September, this month.
Run by DOT.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's we anticipate another CAB meeting before DOT decides or announces any of their any of the rules or configurations of their final proposal. And then I anticipate we'll hear again about the community's concerns and responses to that.
Yeah, okay. I know I got a call from Jerome Barth, which I haven't been able to return, so I'll give him a call tomorrow and see what he has to say. I think he was in on your meeting, if I remember correctly. I think he was, and also Fred Cirillo from Grand Central, because even though there's a small portion of it with Grand Central, people are very concerned over how that whole thing is going to play out with residential vehicles, people wanting to come down Fifth Avenue. How are they going to do it? So, okay, that is going to be interesting, to say the least. Okay, anybody have any comments or questions about that? So we won't do a report, right, EJ? It's a little premature.
Right. I would agree.
Okay. Anything else from anyone?
Vicki, I don't know if you think it's important to mention what's been going on with the homeless shelters and the hotels. Not that we've had it at our committee, but we've been working, the board office has been receiving a lot of complaints, and we've been attending a lot of meetings, Julie, myself, Joseph Fuhr as well, with electeds and different people, trying to resolve some of the issues that we're seeing, particularly with the Kixby and the Hampton Inn, and also the Blakely and the Wellington. We're starting to nibble around it with some potential solutions, like talking about automated public toilets, safe injection sites, things like that, but also working to ensure that providers work to make sure that their clients are being good neighbors. So we're just monitoring it, as Nick says, with the restaurants. We're doing that in the same way with the homeless shelter.
Right. And the outreach with other community boards, which is very important, because you and I both have been getting a lot of feedback, or a lot of what are you guys doing regarding this? How can we do it better collectively, and so on. And so I think both you and Julie have been in touch with other boards. Is that correct? Yeah.
Board 8, Board 7, Board 4 this morning. And so we're going to try and work collectively and work together, because, strength in numbers.
Yeah, I always say that. Okay, yeah, that's very, I wonder if we should report that. What do you think? I mean, that's really a big issue right now.
Huge issue. I mean, we have been getting an awful lot of complaints about this, an awful lot of photographs that no one wants to see.
Pretty awful photographs.
Yeah, lots of photographs. It's drug use, with defecation, urination.
How about after your phone call with
Maria?
No, with the mayor's office, CAU.
Yes.
Who have kind of reached out and said they want to help. Let's see if we get enough information, and maybe something positive that we can report to the board, to say that we've been working on this, and we've been trying to collectively have some kind of a group joint discussion on how we might, or how this might be better handled, or handled at all.
Right.
And then we'll decide whether or not it should be reported. Is that okay with everyone? We won't say yes until, if we don't have something concrete. It would be nice if we could say they're going to do this, or they're going to do that, or whatever. So I know you're having that phone call tomorrow, and then we'll see how it plays out, if everyone's okay with that. All right? Yes? Okay, good. All right, anything else? If not, I think, yes, Luke.
I just want to make a note that one thing CB5 has done with regards to homeless issues, we've been seeing a lot of complaints on 35th Street about the Amazon distribution center there. And from a long time ago, we had one contact at Amazon, and we started sending them photos of all of their Amazon employees loitering on the street, in addition to the street homeless people that were loitering too. And since we heard, I think late last week, that Amazon has, in response to some of our complaints that we've been escalating that direction, they've actually signed a lease for a kind of like employee holding area in a nearby office building, so that their employees don't have to loiter in front of their distribution center. And they're also making sure that some of their deliveries are done inside instead of being staged on the sidewalk. So that's a small thing. It's not exactly homeless, but it's kind of one of the complicated factors that make the street life challenging there. So that's one update that we've kind of had an effect on that's positive.
Okay. Renee, is there anything else that you need to add to that?
No, one of the things is that when you we've been in a lot of meetings with a lot of providers in DHS, and one of the things is the identification, is it their client? Is it this person's client? It's not my client. So when we get pictures and we get complaints, it's very hard. And people have been pointing at Amazon to say, oh, it's not even clients of the hotels, it's Amazon people that are maybe smoking marijuana or doing something untold. So that's what Luke is referring to.
Okay, great. Okay, I think that leads us to the conclusion of this business portion.
So Vicky, if it's time, I'll make a motion that we put the committee into executive session
Okay.
to
Is there a
discuss.
second?
Second.
Okay. So now the full board, I mean, the full board, it's Thursday night. The committee will move into executive session, which, as I explained earlier, is, I think you have to say what the subject is, Nick.
I'll be reporting to the committee on the individuals we're considering for the district manager position.
Okay. All righty. So we will now move into executive session. That concludes this portion of the business session. At the end of the executive session, we will adjourn that meeting, go back into our business session and adjourn that meeting since we finished our business. But that's the way the procedure is that we have to follow. So at this point, it will only be 3, 6, 9, 10 people on this